Just fix it in post.
Oh yeah, that's great, but we'll never use it.
There's no budget, and it was due, like yesterday.
There's been a slight change in direction.
I promise, it's just one last revision.
Welcome to Just Fix It in Post, industry insights straight from the source. I'm your host, Sean Rice, and welcome. From Olympic TV spots to Super Bowl wins, he's an award-winning mastermind behind the campaigns that make you stand up and cheer. As the account director at Wellcom, he's the driving force behind bringing Kaiser Permanente's vision to life, managing everything from video production to digital ads. Whether he's dragging you through the mud pits of Vietnam with the TRD Pro Challenge or subtly reminding you it's time for a colonoscopy, please welcome the man who keeps the ad world buzzing, Patrick Young. So, no pressure. I didn't know if that was too personal with the colonoscopy, but
I'm all about the colonoscopies, you know. 45. It's all good. Everybody get their colons checked.
Yeah, I know, right? It's time to be transparent. So, with that said, before anybody starts judging, so what do you do? What's your official job title?
So, my official job title is account director, and I work for Wellcom Worldwide, which is a company that's owned by InOcean, and we have locations throughout the world: LA, New York, London, Kuala Lumpur, and we have a ton of offices in Australia. So the company has offices in Sydney and Melbourne, and some other smaller offices in Australia as well. So, yep. And we handle a range of clients from fashion to automotive to healthcare, like Kaiser Permanente. So it's busy. It's very busy.
And so, what does your job entail?
My job as an account director is I am solely dedicated to the Kaiser Permanente account. We're the production agency, and we handle the video production, digital production, out-of-home production, and social asset production as well.
How did you get into doing this type of work?
It's funny. The process was I graduated from LMU, Go Lions. I had no idea what I wanted to do. At night, I had a job at the Comedy Store on Sunset. So I knew I wanted to do some sort of entertainment-esque thing. So I got a job actually in radio as a radio sales assistant for Coast and KFI Radio back then. That led to a sales job selling radio time for the Lakers and the Angels. And I'm a huge Lakers fan, so it was like a dream job for me. After 11 months, I got laid off. It became apparent, it's a harsh business, that I realized that I liked the advertising aspect of it and wanted to stay with that. So one of my old clients ran an advertising agency, and after he found out that I got laid off, he offered me a job working at a small shop, and that's where I cut my teeth. And it was a small shop called Covell Fuller in Culver City. This is how old I am. I worked on like .coms galore. Like .coms were coming up out of the woodwork, like left and right. This is how old I am. Yahoo Life, which was a magazine put out by Yahoo. So I worked on that campaign. I also worked on Nintendo, which was a lot of fun. It was a Nintendo magazine. Back in 2000, I worked on this mortgage company, and I don't know if we were the first. We like to think we were the first, but we created the banner ad where you could kind of control it and play Pong within the banner ad. And it was 468 by 60. That's
crazy.
That's how old. And you could control it by moving your mouse like left and right, and then it would just, I don't know what you call them, the Pong things would go up and down.
Right, yeah. The rackets or whatever.
Yeah, and that was just purely a way to just get people to engage with the banner ad, because at that time, people were just, the click-through rates were going smaller and smaller. It was, I think at that point, it was like less than 1, and then it was just it was like a minuscule amount. So we were just trying to engage the audience as much as possible. So then after that, I just moved my way through various advertising agencies, and then I was fortunate enough to work at Saatchi for 7 years on the Toyota account, which is where I first met you, Sean. And And I was very lucky to work on the launch of Tacoma and the redesigned Tacoma in 2016. I got to tow a space shuttle, work on that campaign with the Tundra. And that was back in, that was 2012 now. And that won a bunch of awards. And that was crazy. And then I got to work on, Super Bowl commercials, Olympic spots. I got to travel the world, like Vietnam, as was said earlier. I got to go to Chile, Tacoma, but we shot other stuff in Africa and Europe and all over North America. So, and then from there, I went to Motor Trend, which was great, and I got to work on as opposed to just working solely on one manufacturer like Toyota, I got to work on a bunch of different manufacturers. So that opened up a lot of different opportunities, and then which led me to my current position, which is working on Kaiser Permanente, which is healthcare. So it's a little bit of a switch because, Tacoma and trucks was very much a lifestyle that people were passionate about. And, I equate it as people would wear a t-shirt about, would you wear a t-shirt about it? And people wear a t-shirt about, about trucks and cars and things like that. Would people wear a t-shirt about healthcare? Probably not. That, they wouldn't wear a t-shirt saying I got a colonoscopy today, but it is vital. And, I'm very lucky because I'm working with a client whose goal is to help people improve their lives, through health. And it's a different tactic because with trucks and automotive, you can take a picture or a photo or video of that. Of healthcare, it is a service. So you could take a picture of a doctor or anything but you can't really it's more conceptual.
What's in the audience? Is it the audience that isn't Kaiser that you're also advertising to, or the people within Kaiser about the services?
It's both. So there's usually an open enrollment period, which comes in September, which people have to, if they're currently a Kaiser Permanente member, then they have to renew. If they're new to a job or if they're looking to switch, then they have to check, it's either in LA, it's either, UCLA, Cedars-Sinai, what else is there? There's a bunch, those are the big ones. There's SC, Keck Medical, and that, or Cigna and other markets, but then they can either check Kaiser Permanente or they can check other brands. So the great thing about Kaiser is that you can get treatment all in one location. Let's say if you go to one doctor, if you need to go lab and get a blood test, you have to go to another, you have to drive and go to another building. Whereas Kaiser, you just walk down the stairs or go up a different floor and get your blood drawn and get all these other tests done. Whereas some other doctors, it's not as conducive where, you have to travel and you have to make appointments, et cetera. It's much more convenient and it's all under one roof. So, but it's great because I get to work with great clients who are willing to, do what they can. And then for other people, for healthcare. And it's very much, Kaiser takes a proactive approach to health, whereas they're constantly monitoring your health. They're giving you tips on how to improve your health. My in-laws have it. I know a bunch of people who have Kaiser and they have positive experiences. So that's a good feeling. It's cliche, but people say that health is the most important thing, and I've witnessed it firsthand. So it's just, it's nice, and I'm thankful that everybody that I know is healthy, and Kaiser is part of it. So
yeah, I'm Kaiser as well. Actually, my kid woke up last night at midnight, was like, my ear hurts, and I was like, great. I'm going to have to give Patrick I have to take my kid the Kaiser story, which is going to be a little ironic, but yeah, that's kind of where that ended up going. So with this particular role that you're in, what's your process in terms of when something comes down the pipeline, what does that look like? And kind of walk me through a project from start to finish?
So Kaiser will, it's regional. So Kaiser's based regionally. So there's Southern California, Northern California, and then there's Washington, there's other states as well. Kaiser will come to us and say, okay, we have this campaign or new product coming out, that new service, for example, and we need to market it in this region. And, here's the budget, here's messaging. And we work with, since we're the production agency, we work with a creative agency, and they came up with the creative concepts that gets routed through Kaiser. And then they basically hand the baton off to us. And then we basically, in a nutshell, just kind of execute it, where if it's a video shoot, then we book the talent. In Kaiser, we also utilize the real doctors, and usually doctors, and this latest one, we use real members as well. So,
okay.
So they kind of help us coordinate all that. And then they like to shoot in actual Kaiser medical facilities. So, which means we usually have to do that on a Sunday or a weekend when the facility is closed. So, and then we go and we go through we set up a timeline, we shoot, we do all the prep for shooting, we do post-production, then we go through rounds of revisions with them, and then we do our editing in-house as well. So we do our editing and post effects, and then we do a multitude of assets. So we have 30s, we have 15s, we have 6s, we have all different sizes, 16 by 9, 9 by 16, 1 by 1. And then we also, out of those, we usually have not just video, but we also have a still photographer there as well. So we have, banner ads, we have out of home sometimes that comes out of it, we have print ads, we have social out of it. So it's kind of like a content or advertising explosion from one shoot. So and that happens pretty frequently. It's we have one every 2 or 3 months, so it's pretty ongoing.
Your productions, is it usually like everything's done in one chunk, or do you do like stills and motion and TV and social kind of compartmentalize?
When we're doing the shoot, we do it all at the same time. So on our last shoot, we did a shoot up in Seattle where we're in a studio and we're interviewing doctors and members. And at the same time, we had a still photographer there using the same lighting that's already set up and doing the shoot there. And then afterward, that's when it gets compartmentalized, where it's the video gets produced. It's different tracks after that. So we do retouching with the photos. We're doing rough cuts with the videos and post. And then we just, And then the goal is usually everything goes live around the same time, not on the same day, but usually it's around the same time.
Got it. So there's basically like an end launch date or a live date.
Right. So
now your role, who reports to you, and then who do you report to?
So I'm the only account guy on the account. So the client comes to me and says we have this project, and then I communicate that to, we have a creative director, and then we have a bunch of different producers on it. We have we have 3 different producers working on the account, depending on what the subject matter is, if it's social.
Producers from your side or producers from the agencies?
From our side.
Okay.
So and then we freelance, and then we'll hire a production company that we'll work with to do the shooting, and then and then we just coordinate all of that. And then I'm the liaison to the client. Basically, I'm the one who communicates, okay, this is our timeline, this is our shoot schedule, this is everything, and I'm the one who gets approvals from the client. I'm in the unfortunate position when things go wrong, that I'm like the one who has to go, okay, we have to pivot here because we can't do this or we can't do X, Y, Z. So we have to make some sort of corrections. So it's good and bad. It's, everything never goes according to plan. There's always something that comes up.
I feel like I spend an absurd amount of time in pre-production just in terms of planning every single aspect of it out. Because my thing is like, if there's something you can control at a shoot, control it beforehand. So that way, one, the client knows what they're getting and you can guarantee them that. Two, when shit hits the fan, which it's going to,
right?
Everybody knows what they're supposed to do, whether you're there or not, or whatever. And then also, it gives you a little extra time in the process to be able to account for that because you've already kind of bagged the stuff that you've already pre-planned out in that respect. Now, in all the positions that you've been in throughout your career, has medical been different, or what are some of the differences in terms of where you're at now versus where you were before in automotive?
Well, I did work on medical before back in 2006. So I worked on it a little bit for like 2 years before. And back then it was much more, I worked on WellPoint, which was then bought up by Anthem. And it was much more about like a scare tactic type of thing, like don't be caught without insurance type of thing. And it was about, portraying these people who got in a car accident and now they're kind of screwed. And it was very scare tactic-ish at the time. So that was one of the switch from automotive is just from, production and advertising standpoint is I was always like out in the field, like we would shoot trucks. I remember we would have these conversations with the legal department going, can we jump off a ramp or can we do this? Can we have somebody land in the bed of a truck on a motorcycle? Just these off crazy things. Whereas healthcare is very straightforward and very there's a lot more guardrails. Healthcare is interesting because it's not something that people usually think about in their spare time. But it's a necessary thing that everybody has to have in order to maintain, their lives. Basically, it's but with trucks, which I worked on before, it was very adrenaline driven, and it was a lifestyle. It's definitely it was a lot of driving through dirt, mud, snow, sand, rooster tails. It's like, okay, look at that rooster tail. We get that, it was just let's look at that shot. That rooster tail is not as big as the other rooster tail. And going down to Baja or doing the Mint or, coming up with crazy ideas like, okay, can we drive the Transamerica Highway all the way down? Can we shoot it? And it's just, those are the differences. It's, I don't want to say it's night and day, but it's very opposite ends of the spectrum.
So there's no real changing the wheel with what you do. It's more or less just how do we refine the message about about the process going forward and kind of communicating that respect, and then also targeting all the demographics, I'm assuming.
Yeah, basically it's refining the process. I mean, just having 7 years in Toyota and Saatchi, the word Kaizen is ingrained in me. So I don't know if you're familiar with that, but basically,
Please educate me.
Kaizen is a Japanese term that they use frequently at Toyota because it's part of the Toyota production system, which is what Toyota is known for because it's called lean manufacturing. And because of their production system, Toyota can afford to make their cars and trucks more efficiently or as efficiently as possible without all this excess waste. So basically, Kaizen is a term that means continuous improvement, which is that every time you do something, then you kind of take a step back and look at it and say, how can I improve this for the next time? And so every time I do a shoot or anytime I do a project or any time I personally try to take a step back and think, okay, how could we have done this better? And how can we improve the next time? Because there's always, a campaign could do, gangbusters and could be super successful, but I think there's always room for improvement, just little tweaks here and there. But it's good to just reflect on it. We always at Saatchi, we always used to have this thing called plan, do, learn. So after every campaign, we'd have this big report as to how we can plan, do, and better and learn. What did we learn? So I think it's important for people because people get caught up in the day-to-day and it's like, what's next, is just to quickly take a step back and look as to what I could have done better. Not to harp on the negative of what was wrong with it, but just, what tweaks could have made this process or production better.
And so would you say that your job is to successfully execute the client's needs as well as, I guess, the client's needs on a per project basis? Is that kind of...
especially with my current job, it's basically each project is kind of unique on its own. And sometimes there's stuff that projects that come up year after year, but a lot of the projects are unique and they're addressing a specific issue in a specific region. So for example, in Hawaii, they're having a project that comes up and we need to tailor it because Hawaii is a whole different market than California. So, it's a different kind of mentality, it's a different lifestyle. What works in Georgia is not going to work in Hawaii, for example. So
now, do you guys make those decisions on the way things have worked in the past, or using data, or what kind of decides?
It's derived from the client, actually, because the regions will say, well, no, because the regions know what works for their market, and they will tell us. So, for example, we did a campaign for Colorado, and then we've done stuff for Georgia and what they call Mid-Atlantic states, which is like Baltimore and DC. And Hawaii, you take images or video of people in Hawaiian shirts or like very floral prints, and that would not stand in Colorado or, and what we've learned is that if you can make stuff as localized as possible, that clicks with the audience. So for example, in Colorado, we'll use like slang, like local slang term, like the Front Range, which is their kind of what they term the mountain range, that signifies to the consumer that, we're there locally with you, and we'll try to call out like a local park or a local landmark type of thing. And that way it becomes more personal for the person because, as you know, healthcare is a personal choice. So it localizes it and it builds a stronger bond with the consumer.
It's interesting because like Toyota and like Kaiser, well, I would think like Kaiser, especially now. I don't know how long Kaiser's been around, but I know Toyota's been around for a long time. And there's a bit of nostalgia that comes with, like a Tacoma or, like I remember from kind of like the Mustang documentary that like everybody has a Mustang story. It's kind of the same thing about like Toyota, like everybody kind of has like a Toyota story. And I feel like, even with Kaiser, like people have been through the process with health-related issues, with generations of their family, where Kaiser has been kind of like a part of that, like my parents have Kaiser, I have Kaiser. So does nostalgia and kind of culture play into the content that you're generating, or the process in terms of thinking about how, or is it kind of one of those things where we're evolving, we're always moving forward? what's in the past is in the past? Like, how does that kind of play into something like that?
Kaiser definitely likes to touch upon their history because they were founded in Oakland, based off of servicing a local union. So they're very much kind of union supportive. But other than that, then they're very much like future, because healthcare is very much about latest and greatest technology. You know, what breakthroughs have we made? And because Kaiser also recently, in the last couple of years, launched their own medical school, so now they're kind of trying to they're trying to educate their own doctors coming through. So it's like holistically, people can go from college to medical school to being a Kaiser physician. So to answer your question, there's a little bit of nostalgia, but it's more or less like looking forward and what services Kaiser can provide today. So it's like healthcare, like for example, with your daughter, there's the telehealth conference or telehealth video, which you can get a doctor visit just on your phone. So that's like, you know, those are things that Kaiser likes to advertise and makes it whatever is convenient for the consumer.
The process from client to you to agency, how has that evolved or changed, say in the last 20 years from when you were, doing it in the 2000s to now?
It depends on what client, but the way it's evolved to me is that it's some clients you have like a major like strategy or research. And then before it would be like, okay, we have all the strategies, do all these focus groups. Let's do all this testing before we actually make the creative and make the production. So, and before it was, the big shiny thing was the TV spot or the Super Bowl commercial. And then the whole campaign kind of funneled from that. Whereas now everything's turnaround's a lot quicker. There's a lot more socially based stuff because with social, advertisers can target, they can geo-target, they can see what people are interested in and target it that way. They could target by age. There's so many levers you can pull when you're targeting via social. And there's a lot of more quick turnarounds where it's just like, okay, we don't need the big shiny commercial anymore. Let's just shoot these like 6-second, 15-second videos and let's just get it out there.
So has it gotten shorter, would you say? Like in terms of...
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's gotten way shorter. So as before, it was like, let's be very methodical. This is not for all clients, but for some clients, it's very, let's just get it out there and see what happens. Let's make we don't need all this. I mean, there is some research, but it's just, let's just get the messaging out there as soon as possible. And then there's also, so we work with this platform. It's basically banner advertising, but it's DCO, which is dynamic creative optimization, so we'll create a banner ad with 3 different copy options and 3 different images. And then the vendor or the algorithm it basically sees which banner combinations are doing the best, and then I'll just optimize it. So say, for example, you could have one image with one copy option, and then you have one image with the other copy option, and then it sees which combo works best, and then it just optimizes it.
When did that start becoming part of the process?
That was when I first started on this account. So this was 2022. So I know it had been around even before that. So it's not even just banners. I know they have it for out of home. They have it for there's different iterations of it in different mediums. But basically, it's just computers again, just taking the algorithm and saying which ones perform better and matching the copy with the image.
Do you guys notice a difference in the results that you're trying to get, or is it a matter of just visit, or is it the way of a company justifying your expense with them by saying, look, these are the numbers, your money's at work, kind of like your money's at work type thing. That's it. How do you calculate on your end whether something like that is working or not?
So the campaign runs, and then we kind of get a report as to which one's working. And then the client actually gives us the report. So the vendor is employed by the client. The vendor gives a report to the client, and then we're in this big meeting where they go over the results later on. So it's, by the time it hits us, it's after the fact. So we try to take from that learnings that we can move forward, but it's kind of after. We can't make, there's few exceptions, but we usually don't make tweaks midstream.
And then once the client comes back to you with that information, do you then make changes to other stuff you're doing going forward?
We make notes of what is working best, and then we try to replicate that. So we usually, it depends on the region and also how big the media buy is. And then, but we do, like, there's certain keywords that we see that resonate better with clients or with consumers. And then we try to utilize those later on as well.
Once that process has gone through, and say like the consumer has gone through the process of seeing the ad, signing up, being a part of Kaiser, is there any sort of deep dive process where you evolve the advertising process based on the consumer's experience?
We used to do advertising solely in open enrollment, which is September, October. And then what the client's research told us, well, we worked with the client, and they told us that people don't sign up for health insurance only during that fall period. It's throughout the year, because people switch jobs, people unfortunately get laid off and they need to get different coverage, or they have, so we've learned that the cadence of advertising should be throughout the year. And also it depends on what is happening locally within their community. So for example, when they build a new facility, then we do a campaign for that as well. So the members can be aware, instead of having to drive like 20 minutes to 30 minutes. And usually all of the Kaiser facilities are, when they're brand new, of course, they're state of the art and everything. So it's an awareness campaign as well. So it's more or less geo-targeted, and it's appealing to the consumers that are looking, not only if they should stay with Kaiser, but also making them aware that they have a new Kaiser location in their area.
How does social media play into what you guys do? And then also, there's also PR events that take place that I know people have to sometimes deal with in advertising.
The only thing we usually do with PR is that sometimes they need assets like stills or stuff like that. But mental health is a big thing with Kaiser. We recently did a video with a woman, Naomi Garma. So she's a professional soccer player. She plays for the San Diego Wave. And also she played on the U.S. Women's Olympic team, and that just won the gold medal. So we focused on that. So the video is basically about her and kind of her mental health, and it's a big topic right now. So, and we show videos of her, how to improve her health, because she's there like meditating. It's a big topic, and it's how should I say this? So for Kaiser, it's another offering that they have, part of the service that they have. So that's one of the key things that they want to focus on. And it depends. So sometimes on the campaign, sometimes it's more broader and it's more of like, we're here. And then other times it gets into what services we offer.
How do you guys utilize, I know a lot of, especially probably work more with Twitter, where people would use, influencers or micro influencers to engage or create product content. Is that something that you guys do?
Kaiser doesn't really work with influencers. They work with athletes. So we did a campaign with Klay Thompson, who plays for the Warriors, and with De'Aaron Fox, who plays for the Sacramento Kings. And they sponsor them. And then the Kaiser is also a sponsor of various sports teams, like the Warriors, Sacramento Kings, the Atlanta Braves. They're all kind of regional. And they work with those athletes, kind of act as the influencers for Kaiser. So we do shoots with them. They go out to various Kaiser events. They do things in the community. Like, for example, speaking of mental health, Klay Thompson a couple of years ago had a major injury and he was out for a long period of time. And the spot was basically about his mental health and how he endured kind of going through that whole injury and how he recovered. And now, so it's, and all of for example, the trainers for the Sacramento Kings, when we were with De'Aaron Fox, they're Kaiser doctors. So we utilize demonstrated the care that Kaiser can provide to not just pro athlete, but then also, they have facilities there. Like, for example, in the Kings, they have a sports medicine facility in their arena, like on the bottom of their arena, that's outside, that people can go and get treatment from. There's athletic trainers there. There's a whole, it's huge. There's a whole huge sports facility there, which I was not aware of until I worked on this account.
How do you guys end up going through picking who you hire and why? Kind of
right. It's all based on what the creative is. So if the creative is basically like what we call talking head, for lack of a better term, but basically like interview style, then we have a certain director that we like to use. If it's more lifestyle, we've reached out to other directors, and it depends. So usually with bigger campaigns, bigger shoots, we'll have the concept, we'll have the creative approved, and then we'll go and then we'll bid it out to production. We'll come up with the top 3 directors and production companies that each director is tied to. And then we'll present to the client, and then we'll discuss with them the pros and cons of each one. And then we'll look at the costs, and then us, along with the client, will kind of make a decision on which one we should move forward with.
Since you've been doing this for so long with various companies, like we were talking about before in terms of pre-production, is you spend all this time trying to create exactly what the client wants. And then there are these curveballs that'll come during production where I feel like sometimes we've come up with this, they've already gone through the process of what's a really cool and creative and great idea. And we're trying to get them that cool and creative, great idea. And then somebody wants to see something different. Through the years of doing what you do, what would be better or more efficient or more successful?
Once you get a project, is agreeing, okay, is this the award one or is this not the award one? And if it's not the award one, let's just everybody accept that and not make it, the next, let's not try to make it The Godfather or Citizen Kane or something like that. Let's just do what's best for the client, and let's get their messaging that they want to do out there, versus they want to make an art film. And it's just like, look, it's a 30-second, 15-second TV ad. This isn't winning Academy Awards or anything. So I think if people the team could realize they're all on the same team, first of all, and just manage expectations from that way, saying this is, because at the end of the day, clients paying for this, they want what they're paying for. And it's not, in most cases, it's not, they're not out to win. Like they're not willing to pay for Joe Schmo to go win a can line or something like that. They want to sell their product. Our role is to make whatever will push the product forward, and which put it in the best light, and we'll get the messaging out there in the most clear and concise way.
Now, there's a big push with AI What part does AI play in the process that you're involved in now?
The only time we've utilized AI is when we're doing a radio spot and we want to time it out to see if it meets 30 seconds, and we'll have an AI voice kind of say it. But we haven't utilized AI to its fullest yet. I know it's coming, but as far, I'm just thinking in terms of creative development. We haven't utilized anything like that yet, but I know it's coming. And it'll be interesting because I know I've seen, snippets where AI can just spit out like just tons of copy lines and just like instantaneously. And it's a scary thing for a lot of people, but I think we just have to figure out how to harness it and how to make it a positive versus trying to, because I think people just need to accept the fact that it's here and it's already like the cat's already out of the bag. There's nothing people can do to stop it basically at this point. So I think it's best to learn how to deal with it.
Right.
And try to make it positive.
You wouldn't say that you'd ever see yourself in terms of content creation, like using AI people with specifically for the, like AI people with AI doctors.
And our side of the business with the client relationship, there's a lot of nuances that I don't think AI could do, like I'm just thinking of copy or creatively. Because with the back and forth, there's certain things that the client might know that won't fly politically, or they just know it won't resonate with their client base. I think there's still stuff that AI cannot do yet, which is making creative that resonates with a particular person, just because there's such, especially with healthcare, it's such a nuanced thing. Like, let's say, for example, we'll profile a woman or a man who had a heart attack, but then he went to the ER at Kaiser and now he's healthy and lives a happy life. So I don't think AI can generate that sort of emotion.
I'm sure nobody probably expected that in the last, 8 years, that, especially with the pandemic, that you would be in a position where information or misinformation, or whether to get vaccinated or not get vaccinated, or basically all these tiers of, and I know and I've talked to some people where they feel like it's even bewildering to create content because or discouraging because it's almost divisive. Like that when you create a specific type of content, that you're already going to be turning off a certain amount of people by talking about a certain type of subject matter. So how does that play a role into what you do? Like when is that considered throughout the pipeline, or like, is it considered when once you've created something, or where you're creating it at? Because I know like something you would do up north would be different from something you would do, like in California or, things like that. So how does that affect what you do?
Honestly, it doesn't. I mean, with Kaiser and with healthcare in general, like we tout like getting healthcare and it's like the whole, not to get too political, but the whole, abortion thing with, that's a big political agenda right now. So, Kaiser doesn't really, they say we have the treatments because it's by state. That's the problem, not the problem, but the reality is that everything's regulated by state. So each region is kind of different. And I think with some companies, that's their agenda, is that they like to push their political views onto the consumer. But I think that at these times, it just depends on the company. At these times, everybody's very divided, especially with the election coming up. I think it depends on what your strategy should be for your company. So some companies, if your base is very liberal, then I think you should go that way. If it's very conservative, if you're in the swing states or in the South, you have to be careful. And it's up to the clients whether they want to put their foot out there. Everything's a political topic. Everything that, like, if you would have asked me like 10 years ago if I thought getting a shot was a political topic, I would have not believed you, because I would have think like a vaccination, it doesn't matter if you're Democrat, Republican, left or right, like you would just need a vaccination. It's a human being thing. It's not a political thing to me. It was just like a quality of life thing.
A slight shift in almost like advertising being a dirty word, or, like I feel like advertising coming from, like the 60s and 70s moving into the 90s was still kind of, they were trying to be politically correct. Things were evolving a little bit in terms of that, or playing off of that. And it was, all about your campaign and being loud and whatever. And then,
right. Yeah.
And things kind of like started to like trickle with social media in a different direction. And I kind of see a little bit of this giving visibility into culture and education, and the product being secondary to the content that people are creating. What's kind of like your experience with that, and how that's affected like what you're doing and what you see?
To your point, advertising has become a dirty word because people have become so oversaturated with ads because of the algorithms that people get on their phone. And, I think everybody has that friend or person like, oh, I was just talking about this, and now this ad's popping up on my phone. And it's just like, people think of it as invasion of privacy. And for me, the best ads were the ones that are more emotional and have a emotional story to them. And then it's like a little bit of advertising in the back end. Not like, it kind of pulls you in emotionally. It was this family in Thailand that there was this father and his daughter used to run this like soup stand. And this poor little boy used to come over and would steal soup for his mom because they're poor and everything. So they would catch him, but then the dad would just give him some soup, and they caught him they said, they were like, oh, we caught you stealing, because he was stealing some like medicine and some soup. And then the dad gave him some soup, and then cut to 25 years later, they have a scene where the dad is cooking food, and then he basically collapses and he has a heart attack, and they take it, and there's a scene in the hospital where like there's the bill, and it's like, the daughter's there and she's in tears because she can't figure out how to afford it. And plus her dad's, unconscious. He's on a hospital bed. And so then the other next scene is she falls asleep and she wakes up, and there's another bill where it basically says $0 because the doctor came in and he gave them credit. And it's revealed that the doctor was that little boy that they used to give soup to as a kid. So, and the reveal is, and stuff like that is very like emotional, but to me that makes it more memorable. It has like, I can remember it to this day. So it has like a message to it, and it pulls to the heartstrings of kind of the basic human emotions, where, we all have families, we all have loved ones. And I think that's what resonates mostly with me. And my goal going into advertising was I wanted to make content or be part of a team that makes content where people like 5 years from now can say, oh yeah, I remember that. That was my goal. Like when I first got into this, is basically, I just wanted to make things that would resonate with people. The advertising has to do a shift from being intrusive advertising, appealing to more human emotions than just like, okay, buy now type of thing.
Probably like 6 months after AI had come out, especially with the image creation, it was almost like anything and everything that anybody had ever, and at least I felt this way, had ever dreamt of or dreamed of seeing was then created in an instant. And to me, that kind of like, shock value is gone. People were being turned off by stuff. People were becoming oversaturated. So it was like, how do you then distance yourself from that? Because Because I even notice now with like Toyota, some of the content they're creating on Facebook are actually, they're taking celebrities and putting them on vehicles. And, it's almost like a YouTube website where they're, giving them like, tools to navigate and saying, go somewhere and we'll film the process of that, experience.
There's always the short form content, which is trying to draw people to long form content. And I think because people before, it was all about broadcast, it was about TV, it was all about 30-second ad. And now I think the shift is made to streaming and YouTube, whereas people consume content more on, like, for example, I rarely watch episodic TV like anymore because, or even, even talk shows or anything. I was like, oh, I just watch a clip on YouTube the next day or just within the next few hours instead of sitting down. Because, with kids, you're like, okay, I only have a certain amount of time. And I think that way you can compartmentalize the issue of drawing people in with good content and then having a message as well. I read an article recently that they have to put the big thing up front and then everything's like a flashback because they have to draw people in like right up front.
They're showing the end of like with all the reels because, like even on Facebook, when they're showing you the thumb, it's only like the first 3 or 5 seconds and they're showing the ending there to draw people in. This is how this happened. It's they're trying to, get the clickbait right up front.
Right.
Does Kaiser participate in any long form content where you have like a patient who's been involved with a doctor and have made lifestyle changes and you get to see the outcome? And
not at the moment. I mean, I think they do a little bit regionally where it's like an interview doctor patient, but it's not like a long form content. So like I saw a documentary called the First Wave, which was basically, I think it was done by National Geographic, but it was really powerful, but it was about the first wave of COVID in New York City, and it followed like a certain amount of doctors and nurses, and the cameras are in the ER, and it follows them home, and it was really, powerful stuff because you see people, just because this is when first COVID hit, and they're wearing full face masks and everything, and you see just the stress and everything, and you see people like literally like break down and cry because I remember the first scene, there was a guy who they have him on an iPhone on FaceTime with his family, and he wanted to be intubated because he's having problems breathing. And then, so he goes, okay, intubate me. So they have the nurse is holding the iPhone, and he's saying, okay, I love you. Bye. I'll see you guys after procedure's done. And then they start, and then there's a scene where he just starts flatlining, and then they give him CPR, and they get him back, and then they rush him over to the operating room, and then he flatlines again, and then it's just like, and then you see, and then they cut to the doctor having called the family and saying, unfortunately, your husband didn't make it. So, and then you see like, and then it also follows them home as well and interviews them. And it's just like very powerful content because it's very heavy. And I think too, with healthcare, as a category, it's very, it's a great opportunity because it is a lot of, you deal with deep, heavy emotional stuff if you want to. So it's, because it is life and death. But to me, healthcare is like an opportunity for very rich emotional content.
That leads me to the next question would be, so what do you see as being the future, where the company wants to connect with the consumer? I see TikTok possibly going away. You have a lot of streaming, and then, kind of a little bit of an introduction of more ad-supported streaming, with paid tiers, because everybody's, I don't know about you, but my streaming bill is like, almost $300 a month. With all the platforms. And then, you have Instagram and Facebook are done by the same company. I see when I pause the TV, some interactive ads coming up depending on what platform you're on.
Yep, I saw that. Yep.
There's a lot of change I see coming up as well as like, I feel like a lot of people are also waiting for the election to happen so they can figure out how they're going to ad spend going forward and where that money goes. So what with what you do and what you see, what do you kind of see happening with the future of the way things are?
Honestly, I think the streaming platforms, there's going to be a market correction where I don't think there will be as many because I think I think they'll either like merge or some will fall by the wayside. And because, I have like Disney Plus, ESPN, Hulu, Netflix, there's like Paramount, there's all kinds of stuff. And there's only so much content you can watch because now you could just sit there. And it's interesting too, because so we have Spectrum purely because my wife is a Dodgers fan and they're the only one in town. So, but that's the only reason we have like a traditional cable. We don't even have the box anymore. We just have the app on our TV.
Yeah, I've DirecTV in the same respect. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think there'll be a kind of course correction as far as streaming platforms. And I mean, it's interesting you brought this up because I have Hulu, but Hulu with ads.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah.
It's confusing as a consumer when you want to watch your content as to what platform it's on because there's so many different platforms. Because I'll see like a trailer on YouTube that says, oh, and then if I don't remember like the platform, if it doesn't have a platform at the end of it, or if I don't watch it, or if I don't get to that point, because knowing me, I only watch like the first 5-10 seconds of it. And if it doesn't pull me in, then I'm already like, remember like back when I was growing up, it was like ABC, NBC, and CBS, and maybe like Fox. So you had 4. I think if it can come down to like 4 or 5 like streaming networks that are or streaming platforms, then I think that'd be a huge opportunity more for advertisers because you could, what you're getting as far as more consumers are focused. It's not as diverted. And I think, don't get me wrong, there's great content on there, but I think there's just it's diluted is the right word. So it's very diluted right now. And I think I think the pendulum is going to swing the other way where it's going to become very, there's going to be more, what's the word, like a narrow lane of content.
So then how does your company then connect its product with its consumer? All these variations of content that you're capturing when you do a project, are there other avenues that they're exploring? Or?
Yeah, I think it just depends on the client. Like some of the other clients that we have at Wellcome are fashion, for example, or another client is Raising Cane's. So I think one of the things that we could do is, say, for example, like Raising Cane's is we don't make content for that. We make, I should clarify, we do experiential for them. So we help them with their like marquee flagship locations, and we build like in Times Square. Wellcome did all the design and the deco and the art deco stuff in the middle of the experiential feeling of going into Raising Cane's in Times Square. Bringing back to the streaming, I think we could do stuff that's customized to whatever the streaming whatever the content is. So that would be my ideal world, is that whatever the content is that you're watching or the consumer's watching, they would make it focused on that. Because like, let's say if you're a sci-fi fan, or, if you're a Star Wars person, then, you're not gonna want to see a Star Trek-y commercial because, that's between church and state is like Star Trek, Star Wars. So are you delivering the right message in the right environment at the right time? It's part consumer, it's part production and creative, and it's also part the media placement as well. So it's working with the media team to make sure where the buy is and where this content is going to live and who is it targeted towards. Or say, for example, like social, is it geo-targeted? Is it targeted to a certain demographic? In my ideal world, that would all just come together at the beginning, and that everybody has a plan.
So we'll do the 10 questions.
It's time for
10 questions. Is that a yes or a no, or what do you think?
10 questions.
The best campaign you've ever worked on.
The best campaign I've ever worked on. Well, there's two categories. The most award-winning was when we towed the space shuttle. The second one I would say was when we launched the Tacoma in 2016, because we're out in the desert and there's just like explosions. There's I got to meet like Ricky Johnson. He was one of the stunt guys. I didn't even know it was him at first. Ricky Johnson, who's a big like motocross legend. And then, there's guys just jumping off of things left and right on motorcycles. That was fun to shoot. And then also the campaign wise, it was a huge success because it maintained Tacoma as the king of the mid-sized truck category.
Print or digital?
I like 5 years ago, I would say all digital, but I'm kind of nostalgic for print now.
It's true.
But I would say digital.
Got it.
Digital because you can customize it.
Hardest client type, indecisive or picky?
Indecisive.
Indecisive?
Yes,
Because you're just spinning your wheels.
Because you try to get stuff in front of them in order to have them react to it but then you spend a lot of time, like you said, spinning your wheels. You're just like, okay, do you like this, A or B? And you're constantly having to come up with choice A or choice B versus them articulating what they want.
Favorite marketing tool?
By marketing tool, do you mean?
In a package of content that you're creating, what's the one thing you look forward to creating for that you like to see the results that come from that particular?
Like the social, like short form videos. So that's what I like the best is like 6-second videos. Because I'll give you an example. So we were shooting something in Chile with the great John Payne, and we have what they call huasu, which is basically like Chilean cowboy. And at the time, this was not scripted at all. At least it wasn't. I wasn't aware of it. But so he had the Wasso like doing turns with his horse, and then doing like kind of a figure eights and stuff like that, and then just running a circle. And I was thinking at the time, what are you doing? And then he had Andy Bell do the same thing with the Tundra. With everything that a horse did, he had it do with the Tundra. And at the time, I was thinking, why is he doing this? But then when they cut it together at the end of the day, it was probably the best performing like 6 short form video we'd ever done, because it was like Huasso cowboy running with the cowboy, cut to the Tundra doing the exact same thing. And it was very like cut to back and forth. And it was awesome. And then after that, I was just like, all right, and John, I trust. So,
most stressful deadline ever?
Most stressful is when you're working on Super Bowl commercials.
Super Bowl commercials?
Super Bowl commercials, because they're usually due end of January, early February. And unfortunate because you don't really get a holiday season because of that. And you're working every day, usually except for Christmas. You go to Fox or ABC or NBC or whatever the particular network is, and then you have to view the spot, so make sure it runs correctly. And it's just, it's a lot of stress, because when you think about how much money is involved, how many eyeballs are going to be on it, you could totally go down a rabbit hole of stress.
Got it.
So
makes sense.
Yeah.
And there's a crap load of money involved, it seems like, with those.
Yes. Yep.
Data or instinct?
I would go data, because you always want to make data-driven decisions. I mean, I've gone off a instinct before, and it's kind of bitten me, I guess. So, so yeah, data.
Best brand slogan?
Oh, I like the BMW one. the ultimate driving experience.
Preferred way to brainstorm, solo or team?
Team, because when you're doing brainstorming as a team, one person's thought could spark another thought or sparks another thought. So it's like it's a bunch of synapses firing. And
Ad you wished you'd created?
like there's a Nike one that I forget what it's called, but basically it's a lot of jump cuts from starts off with a boy running and then cut to like a professional guy running, cut to like it's really but quick cuts. Then the next one is person running but then doing a long jump, and then the long jump going into like pole vault type of thing.
Feedback, clients or creatives? Who gives the faster feedback?
Depends on the client, but usually creative, you know. So I've had some clients actually that will go and give creative like immediately. So those are probably the best ones. And then you walk out of the room going, okay, this is what we have to do, type of stuff.
10 questions.
10 questions.
Well, basically, what would you tell your younger self? Knowing what you know now.
My younger self, I would say just relax and don't sweat the small stuff, and try not to compare yourself to like the next marketing person. Because I think one of the issues I think for me personally with social media is that it sparks a comparison to the next person, you know, and that social media is not real life. So,
Right.
you know, because not everybody, no offense, but not everybody's like has this beautiful pictures that they're in this exotic locations and things like that. So, but yeah, that's what I would tell my younger self. And I would basically say stay off social media.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny because you know my daughter sees me working on stuff, and she's like,
Yeah.
"What are you doing?" I said, and you feel almost like an idiot because you're doing this fake stuff or this pretend stuff or putting things
Right.
together or swapping backgrounds out or making people look a certain way, creating things the way people want them to be seen.
Right.
You know, and it's like, and she's like, "What's wrong with it?" I'm like, "Well, it depends on who you're talking to."
Right.
You know, there's nothing wrong with it, but you know.
Yep.
And it's such a fascinating loop in terms of that. But yeah, she won't be getting a smart cell phone until she's 18 at least. Based on all the research and experience that I've had, it's like, you know, especially with kids growing up, you know, mental health, you know, when they're going through a critical period when they're in their teens and just, you know, constantly be bombarded by these things. And not only that, but like, you know, I was bullied in high school, so I can't even imagine not being able to shut it off at 2:30 or 3. You know,
Right.
continuing on all night long, and it just seems like it's just not worth.
No, trust me. I have teenagers, and they're constantly they're just like this and that. And I've learned. So, just really quick, I've learned when I try to teach my daughter how to drive, I learned that they didn't have the same experience we did growing up because they're on their smartphone. So, like before, if we sat in the passenger side, we were just like, you know, we were constantly looking out the window or trying to see what the driver's doing or whatever. Like when I try to teach her how to drive, we drove someplace and I said, okay, drive home. She had no idea how to get home because they're on their phone the whole time.
That's crazy. Right.
And plus they're like, okay, well, we have Google Maps. We have, you know, we have all these navigation devices. Like, why do I even need to know? You know? So, and then they're not watching there's a huge steeper learning curve for teaching teens how to drive now because they're so preoccupied with their phone that they're not even paying attention to what the driver's doing at all. So it was very eye-opening for me to realize that even now, like it's a hard time because my kids got a phone when they were 12 because my wife's a teacher and they were going to a different school than my wife in 7th grade. So we wanted to be able to know where they are and track them.
Right.
So plus you'll learn, but it's just like, and plus all the peer pressure of it.
Yeah. I'm sure that too. That's crazy.
Yeah.
What advice would you have for anyone looking to do what you do?
I would say do a bunch of internships and get as many, do internships, get as many contacts as you can, go to industry events like Think LA. What I've learned is it's not about what you know, it's about who you know. So I would network as much as possible.
You'd already mentioned the most favorite thing that you had worked on, right? In terms of would you say that what Vietnam was your favorite?
That was my favorite like trip. I think because we did Chile first, and then I knew what I was in for with Vietnam. I mean, Chile was crazy in itself, but Vietnam, I would say going into it, I was nervous because I had read all these things about undetonated landmines and stuff like that. And I was like, because we were in the jungles of Vietnam.
Right.
And I was like, I need to get the war scenes out of my head, because, you see like Apocalypse Now. And it's basically that's what it looks like. And you're just like, so, and then everybody's super nice over there. Everybody was warm and kind of welcoming. So it was great.
Did you do Alaska? Were you on that one too?
I was not on that. So that was a quick, it was John Payne. And I think that was it. That went from the agency.
So yes, lastly, is there anybody that you want to thank?
Well, I want to thank you for doing this. And
for sure.
I mean, I would like to thank, my clients for giving me the opportunity to do it. Like the people at Kaiser, they keep me gainfully employed and give me the opportunity to make great content. And then the people at Toyota, which I probably made a lot of great content. And, I had the opportunity to travel places I would probably never travel on my own.
That's cool. Well, if people want to find you and kind of get to know a little bit more about you, your history and all that stuff, you have social links and or LinkedIn or anything like that?
Yeah, they could look at my LinkedIn, which is it's basically Patrick Young on LinkedIn.
Perfect.
If you just look up, there's tons of Patrick Youngs, but
we'll have all the links of. We'll also get all the links of all the stuff we've talked about and like all the videos that you had mentioned and things like that up there, so people can reference them as well.
Cool.
In the description. Are you on Instagram or X or any of that stuff?
I'm on Instagram, but I don't really post on it, honestly. So it's but I'm mostly on if I'm on any social media, it's on Facebook. And it's mostly for advertising purposes. It's mostly to check to see if the ad is running. So I've become one of those, when we first had kids, we used to post a bunch of photos of our kids so our families could see. And then when my daughter hit about 5, then we just kind of stopped. I thought about it and I was like, well, I want my kids to decide if they want to be on social media.
Right.
Versus me putting them out there. So I kind of stopped posting.
Got it.
I guess I'm the voyeur of social media.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's different when you work in it, for sure.
Yes. Yep.
All right, cool, man. Well, thanks for coming on. I appreciate your time and sharing your insights.
No, thanks for having me, Sean. It was great.
Just fix it in post.